Hey everybody, welcome to Caught by Happy. How's everybody doing today? We doing good? Feeling good? Feeling great? Did you take your fiber? Everything moving along? What about vitamins? You take those? Multivitamins or just maybe supplements here and there? Or are you on a regimen? Do you have one of those pill boxes? Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and every little box has the pills in there that you got to take? Hey, it's about getting older. It's part of it. That's what we got to start doing. I'm 41. I take a vitamin D supplement. You know, biotin's good for you. Biotin, I guess, with your hair and everything. That's and your nails. Whatever you take, I hope you're taking it, and I hope you're feeling good. I hope you got a supply in your cupboard that's not running out because multivitamins and supplements are expensive. Just stay away from those diet pills and stuff like that. Those things are dangerous, man. They're not FDA approved. Stick with the FDA. They know what they're talking about, right? Hey, look, today on the show, I got an old friend. Her name is Jenine Laurie. I actually had lost touch with her for a while, and then we reconnected about 5 or 6 years ago. And then she went off social media and disappeared for a little bit. And the next thing you know, I see a post on Facebook that says Jenine Laurie is now a children's book author. She's publishing a book. Holy cow, I got to buy this book, right? I mean, there's an old friend of mine. I haven't seen her in forever. Let me see what she's up to. So I buy the book. I reach out to her. I see how she's doing. She's out in California doing well. She's got a little family. Yeah, she's really into I guess you would call it the spiritual. She's all about embracing creativity. She's one of those people, which is great. She's always been like that. I mean, I've known her. I knew her back in 1996 is when we met in college, and even back then she was very artistic, I guess you could say. Artistic person, very bright and full of energy. After not having seen her and spoken to her in so long, it was great to see that she still has that energy and she's embracing it and using it to create books and stories and things that will help children and adults embrace their creativity, their own creativity. Before we get into it with Jenine, let me just ask once again, if you have a story or if you have a hobby or if you are doing something that is bringing you joy and happiness, I want to hear about it. Make sure you reach out to me at caughtbyhappy@gmail.com. Let's talk about it. Let's put it out there into the world. Let's see how you can inspire other people to follow their dreams and follow their passions. Because there's a lot of people out there that have an idea in the back of their mind that they just haven't had the ability to get moving, to get going. And your story might be that motivation they need, that kick in the pants that they need to put something into action, to get something out there into the world. So if you want to be a part of it, just DM me at caughtbyhappy on one of my social platforms or send me an email, caughtbyhappy@gmail.com. You could be a difference maker. You never know. You could be a difference maker. Okay, let's talk to the old Cortland pal, Jenine. She's a children's book author. She's an artistic lady. I think you'll like her. And as you'll find out, she doesn't even remember when I and a couple of friends drove all the way down to Westchester, New York on New Year's Eve, 1997-ish. Ate a delicious meal with her family. Took a train into the city. My very first time in New York City. She doesn't even remember. But we're not going to hold that against her. We're going to talk to Jenine right now. How are you?
I'm good. How are you? This is awesome.
I know. Let me just tell you, first of all, you look exactly the same way you looked in 1996. You have not
That's funny.
changed at all.
You kind of look the same too.
No, I don't.
Well, you're covered a little up with a beard and a mustache.
Yeah. A little gray coming in over here.
I don't remember what I looked like in, what was it? Oh my God, 96. That's
96. 96.
Yeah. It was funny this morning. I was thinking about the good old Cheney Hall days. We were so lucky to be in the computer dorm.
I was telling somebody about that. In my day when I went to school, there was one hall that had computers.
One computer dorm. We were the first one. It was
Right.
like a big deal to get into that dorm that had that big clunky computer.
Right, because nobody brought their own computers to school.
That was in like the days where like you would do something that was like I remember typing in like the function keys.
Do you remember how horrible those computers were too?
They were bad.
Even back then, they were like the
Yeah.
worst possible computer you could have. Probably because we were just like downloading a bunch of nonsense, like viruses.
It seems like a long time ago, huh?
It was a long time ago. And I was thinking about it in 96, freshman year, I had the world's worst roommate. Now, sophomore year and on, my roommate was Jeff. He was great, great guy. We were roommates from then on. But freshman year, you probably don't remember.
I don't. Well, I remember. Okay, so I remember you were always with us, with
That's
Carrie
why I
and
was
Jen in
always
the
with
room.
you. That's what I
Right.
was going to say. I
Oh,
hung
you
out
know,
with you
Carrie's
guys.
room and Matt's in there too.
Yeah. Matt, I have to change. Turn around.
But you know what? Do you remember my roommate? She
No, I'm
was
trying to think
crazy.
of.
She was like this. I mean, nothing wrong with goth, but she was everything black. And then here I come in. I mean, you see me. I'm like rainbows and fun colors. And like,
Who
I
was
mean,
your roommate freshman year? I
I
don't
guess
remember.
she was not a freshman. I think she was a sophomore. I really don't remember. That's how connected we were. I really don't even remember her name.
Yeah.
But all I remember was she was just completely in black all the time, black lipstick, black everything, and her boyfriend was there, and it was weird. We were not a match. And I was doing up the room in like lights and Christmas lights and making it
Yeah.
all homey, and she couldn't tolerate it.
Wow.
So mid semester, I ended up rooming with, remember Megan?
Yeah, I remember Megan.
Megan was super cool.
Megan and I and Tom, my friend Tom from back home,
Uh-huh.
came to your dad's house, your house,
Oh
for
yeah.
New Year's Eve. Do you not remember that?
Kind of. I mean, it's kind of coming back. It was so many lifetimes
I
ago.
know, but that's like one of my best memories from college.
Oh
And you
yeah.
don't
Well,
remember it.
I was probably really drunk or something. I do remember having a lot of good times together. That much I do
Yeah.
remember for
No,
sure. And freshman year was fun.
yeah, I think when you well, junior year, I guess, when you moved off campus and I moved off campus, you and I kind of like went our separate ways. We would still hang out and see each other, but
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah, for
it
sure.
definitely wasn't like freshman and sophomore year when we were.
No, because when you're in the dorm, you kind of get your own little family together.
Yeah.
And then I don't know, classes. But college to me, undergraduate was such a joke. Like, I mean, I think that it was such a joke. I don't
Well,
even remember going to school. It
well,
was just
no.
for the partying, for having fun. It was a social experience for me. I mean, it was some good times. For me, it
What
was more,
what was your
about
major?
what was my major? You could see how serious. No, I was an art major.
I
Um,
remember that
yeah, so I
because
was art
everybody was either education or phys ed,
ed or.
and I was communications.
But
And
you
then
want to hear the funny thing about that? So I came in as an art major, and then I did like a dual major in art and psychology, and then I kind of picked up some art history along the way. And then when I graduated from Cortland, I decided to become an art teacher, which I probably could have done there, but I decided to go on and get my master's degree at SU. So I went to Syracuse.
oh, you
Um,
did?
yeah, so I went straight through and I got my master's in art education.
You just kept going upstate.
I just kept going upstate, and then finally the winters just killed me. I could not take it. There was one day I was driving, I don't know, I was on the highway and my windshield wipers froze up. There was like 4 feet of snow. I was driving with my head out the window so I could see the road, and there were cars all on the side of the road. I mean, you got upstate New York. And I
Yeah.
finally said, I got to get out of here. This is too much for me.
So did you complete your master's there?
I did. So I completed my master's, and then I sent out like 40 resumes at that time to get a teaching job. I heard back from one 2 weeks before the school year was about to start, and it was for a teaching photography position. And I thought, oh my God, the one thing I don't have experience in. So I had to learn. So I went into that interview and I said, look, I know absolutely nothing about photography. I'm just going to be totally open with you, but I'll be prepared for this class and I'll enroll in a college course and I'll be ready by the time I have to teach a class. I said, okay. So I taught myself photography and I was ready and I loved it and I fell in love with photography. It
Wow.
kind of took off after that. And then I ended up,
Where
they
was
loved
this?
me. This was in upstate New York. Jamesville DeWitt High School was my
Okay.
first teaching job. And then I moved. I wanted to get out of upstate New York. So I started looking for jobs and I got a job in Maryland. So that's when I moved to Annapolis. And I was teaching in high school. then after a year, they decided that my position wasn't open anymore at the high school. I was like, "What? What are you talking about?" So they moved me within the district, and I got a position teaching elementary school in Anne Arundel County, Maryland. And then after a few years, I just thought, I'm ready to leave.
Man,
Um,
all those years, one state away from you couldn't call and say hi.
and I was close to Virginia too. I had no idea you were in Virginia.
I've been in
None
Richmond.
at
I've
all.
been in Richmond since graduating from Cortland. Yeah,
Wow, really? Richmond's
pretty
a really
much.
cool area. I liked Virginia. I liked Maryland too. It just wasn't for me. I was meant to move out west.
Yeah.
Um, the
Did you
story,
move? Is that how you got out west? Is right from Maryland?
yeah.
So you
So
never moved back to your hometown?
no, I was kind of done with it. I love New York. I love being a New Yorker. I kind of take pride in my New York roots. But that being said, I like to explore the world and kind of experience. And for me, California is really, I love it. I love it here. I feel like I'm supposed to be here right now, but
Yeah.
the world is calling still. And I like to travel and experience all kind of things.
What year did you move out to California?
So the way it happened for me, I was dating a guy. I mean, we were living together, but I don't know I wasn't really, in love with him, so to speak. We were just together. And a calling kind of came. He was sleeping one day and I looked over and I was just kind of like, this isn't where I'm supposed to be. And this isn't the man I'm going to marry. The man I'm going to marry is out in California. And something hit me. The very next day, I went on the internet and I started looking for jobs in California. And there was only one teaching job in Southern California. I sent out a pamphlet with all of my skills and pictures of all the work that I had done with children. And I sent it to this school. It was a private Jewish school in Irvine, California. And I didn't hear back for 3 weeks. And then suddenly I just got a response. We love what you're doing. We're going to fly you out here. What's the soonest you could get here?
So for those 3 weeks, were you still living with this guy and not
Yeah,
telling him what
it
you were doing?
was. It was. But I kind of knew I kind of knew I was on
That's
my way out. But
that's pretty profound to have that
it was
moment.
it was a moment. It was an epiphany. And I ended up, I don't know if do you remember, well, one of our friends from college, Jen Boye. Do you remember Jen Boye?
I remember the name.
I don't know if she was in Cheney too.
Yeah, I remember the name.
So we were really good friends, and she moved out to San Diego. We were roommates when I lived in Syracuse for a little while, and we became really good friends at Cortland. And she had moved out to San Diego, so I went out, I visited her, I went to my interview, I got the interview, and packed up my whole life, my dog, my Volkswagen Beetle, everything. We moved. I was done. I moved, and I never looked back. And that was in 2004.
And that guy still sleeping on the couch, doesn't know what the hell hit him.
I don't think he's sleeping on the same couch. I think it was probably good for both of us. He
Yeah,
ended up
yeah.
moving on with his life, and so did I. And ships crossing paths. Sometimes
Of
it's
course.
meant to be for a long time. Sometimes it's not. I guess for me that it was that moment of just, yeah, this is where I'm supposed to be. And I listened to it, and the rest of my life shifted. And of course, I did meet the man that I was going to marry out in California.
Yeah.
And
What year did you meet him?
Carl and I met in 2005.
So like a
Yeah,
year after you got there. Wow.
a year after I got there. I remember sitting on a bench, my favorite beach ever, in Corona del Mar. It's actually close to what's called Inspiration Point, and it's a beautiful spot. And I remember looking out thinking, when am I going to meet that man that I'm supposed to marry out here? It was just kind of like a knowing that I was just going to fall in love and meet that person. And that bench, I never told him the story, was where he proposed to me.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I
The
never
bench
told him
that you were
that.
sitting on thinking when you were going to meet this
Yeah,
guy.
that was where he proposed to me. So it really I never told him about that. And then when we walked over and we sat on that bench, and he got on his hands and his hands, he got on his knees, his hands and knees. He got down on his knees with our dachshund at the time too. He was there as well. But yeah, and then I shared it with him later, and I was kind of in one of those, did this really just happen moments? And then I realized, of course it happened. And that's really the inspiration, all of those moments where I listened to this voice, this deep knowing from within, and I followed that. That's the place where these books and what I share now, the work that
Yeah.
I do. Um, that's really the inspiration for that, is that I believe we all have those moments. And then when we honor them, it's very magical.
Well, when did you start realizing that you were following whatever voice was coming from within? Like, was it that moment that you moved out to California, or was there like times afterwards, like the proposal on the bench and that kind of thing, that you just realized, you took note of, wait a minute, this is kind of working for me?
I feel that for my life goes in stages, as many of ours do. There's early childhood, and then whatever comes after. I shut it off. I always had that voice, but I would just not listen to it, and that was not very satisfying for me until one day, that day where I said, no, this is what I'm supposed to do, and no matter what, I have to follow it. And that's when it really started to pick up for me. So when I made the decision to, it's a big deal to move by yourself 3,000 miles away.
Oh
For
yeah.
some people, it's not, but for me, I did not know a single person. And I don't know. I had no idea why. I just need to be there. And there was a calling that was pulling me there, and I had to listen to it. And the second that I did that, something switched for me. And I realized, yes, that is a voice inside me. And I do have to honor that. And that's when it started for me, was in 2004. I started to really open up to that. So I think that it still happens where, oh, should I do that? Should I not? But then there's a yearning deep inside that when I listen to it and when I honor what I feel really, and you talk about, happiness, there is that space that bring it's joyful.
There's a lot of, I guess you could call them negative forces or whatever, or maybe it's just people in your life who are constantly
Yeah.
telling you you can't do something, or you shouldn't do something, or it's stupid, or it's dumb. How do you keep focus on what your inner voice is telling you?
Yeah, I mean, I think for at this point in my life, I'm at a place where that doesn't happen so much. The people that are in my life are very supportive, and they love what I'm doing, and they want to be in that energy. So I think there's a tipping point where you just start to live in that and honor what you need to do for you, and you don't even, maybe those people are still there. I don't notice them.
Yeah.
I
Well,
don't notice much.
well, maybe for me, maybe it's not so much people. Maybe it's just my own other
Yeah,
voice
yeah.
saying,
There's that
"Stop doing
too.
that."
Yeah.
So you got to have some of that too, like the doubt or
Oh
whatever that creeps
gosh,
in.
yeah, of course. It's an ongoing practice, that going within and not listening to what I would deem as not really our true identity, but more of, I guess you could say, ego. The ego is that little voice in the back of your head that's saying, "Don't do that. You should be doing this," and that really cares. I think the true essence within us that aligns with, the unknowing, that voice that's coming from what I would think is our real intuition, that's aligned with a higher consciousness, is really not so attached to all of the things that the other voice says. It's
Yep.
in more of a, yeah, so be it. So this is what it is, and has no expectations. Like, I had no idea what I was going to find in California, but yet I knew that there was something that I needed to follow. The expectations of, if I would have put like, oh, I'm going to go to California and it's going to be like this, it would have robbed me of the moment. So I don't know. I mean, it's just it's a practice of just finding your own center.
So what year did you guys get married?
2007.
When did you have a kid? 2000,
Jaden was born in 2009.
2009. Wow. You have just one?
Yeah, together. And then I have a stepson who is 15.
Oh,
So
okay.
so it's been some fun dynamics with that.
Yeah. I saw that you just got back from Peru, but you've been traveling there for a little while, right?
Of course, that was another point in my life where I had a calling, and
Mm-hmm.
no matter what was going on and how crazy it seemed, I thought, "All right, here I go." And so that was a tough point in my life. That was one of those moments where I was going through some tough times. Carl and I were both really, as magical as our life has been, we've had a lot of bumps in the road. I think that when you're partnering with somebody, that person really acts as a mirror, and they pull out the things within you that you need to see. And sometimes it's beautiful and sometimes it's not. I was going through a point in my life where I was really just, I guess I wasn't happy. I wasn't living life as I had wanted to. And I was not conscious of it. And Carl and I were going through a tough time together in our marriage as well. I kept thinking to myself, I need to go somewhere. I need a trip. And for me, it's always something that's going to open me up spiritually. I want more. I don't want to go on like a Club Med vacation. Like I want to experience the essence, something that brings me deeper within myself. And I had always wanted to go to Peru. And every time I was on the computer, pictures were just randomly popping up. And then a friend mentioned to me that she was going on a journey to Peru for 3 weeks. So even though up until the very last moment I was saying no, my heart was already ready. I had already booked my tickets.
Wow.
I was ready to go. And so I went on a trip to Peru for 3 weeks and I fell in love with the country. I fell in love with the people, the work there.
When was
It,
that?
yeah, about 4 or 5 years ago. I don't remember exact dates, but something opened up within me about, it's really hard to explain in words because the connection to what I experienced there it's very experiential. You kind of find yourself by leaving maybe an aspect behind. And I just came back different. I connected with the land.
Where
Just
did you just kind of travel around? Did you meet a ton of people?
I did. I mean, I went with that time. I went with a group. It was a big group, probably close to 20 people in my group. And interestingly, as large as my group was, I didn't really connect with the people so much as myself. And then while I was there, I had this beautiful vision of my husband and I walking a path there in Peru together in the spring. And I did come back different. And then the spring, we ended up going and that same path we walked together. So
You made it happen.
I made it happen. And we went back many, many times after. And now we actually do trips with other people. We bring people there who are seeking similar experiences. And
Yeah, I mean it's pretty interesting. There are certain places, and it could be different for anybody, but there are certain places where people just seem to connect and gain a little perspective.
yeah,
It could be a beach, it could be a mountaintop, it could be a restaurant somewhere. It doesn't have to.
yeah, no, I mean, that was exactly it. I mean, for me, for a little while, it was like, oh, well, I have to leave to gain perspective. And then something happened where I wasn't able to go for about 2 years. And it was hard for me because I thought, well, how am I going to gain perspective? How am I going to do this? I can't leave. I can't go to my special place. And what ended up happening was a realization that I gained perspective anywhere. I found myself becoming intimately connected with the ordinary. The ordinary, staring at a tree. I remember being at Starbucks and I was just watching people and just little things in my and Starbucks isn't quite, most people will be like, oh, an epiphany at Starbucks, but I was trying to realize that I didn't have to go anywhere, that what I was looking for was essentially and fundamentally found within myself in
Hmm.
any moment, especially the ordinary moments, because that is a lesson that I think when you talk about caught by happiness, what is that moment,
Yeah.
because every moment is precious. So that was really what I was seeking, is to realize that I don't have to go anywhere. And then once I got to that, now I'm going back again. And it's very different now.
Yeah.
My
Because
trips are different.
you're not going in search of anything, right?
Exactly.
Mhm.
No, I'm going in. I'm not really sure why I'm here. I'm just here. And it's different. And there's no expectations, but there's always some level of introduction to something deeper than myself.
So tell me about when you started getting the inspiration to become an author.
Yeah, and that's an interesting one too, because I never really deemed myself as somebody who would be a writer. I love, as you can tell, I love communicating. I love inspiring others and speaking just with anybody pretty much. But I think it was 12 years ago. I was picking my mother-in-law up from the airport. She was coming in to visit us. And I was just sitting in the parking lot, just waiting for her flight. And I started having these words coming to me. So I looked around for something that I could write in the car. And I wrote down the story. And it sounded very much like a children's book. So I came home and I shared it with my husband, and he's like, wow, that's really good. I shared it with a few people. And I actually submitted it to a publishing company back then, because back then there was none of this do it independently. Amazon wasn't even around. Now it was a challenging process to get accepted, and I had no idea what I was doing. To me, I really didn't know.
Yeah.
So I submitted it and I never heard anything. And
Did
then
you have the whole story written out at that point?
I did. I did. It went through several rewrites. after that. And I'm so glad that it did, because it was nowhere near where it could have been. It wasn't ready. It wasn't the right timing, but I did put it out there. And another one came too. I wrote a different story as well. So I wrote two. I actually have quite a few. I would journal, and these stories would just come, and they were beautiful, and they were coming from a space within me. I wasn't really even aware where they were coming from. I just kind of would write them down and then set them aside. So I didn't hear anything from the publishing company, and I kind of forgot about it. Our son was born, because this was even before Jaden was born. And then life took on a different path. I was in the process with what was going on with, being a new mother and all of that. And we went through a whole different set of things. And I forgot about the books. I didn't even remember I even wrote them.
Uh-huh.
A few years ago, after I experienced, or around the same time, I experienced my first journey to Peru, something sparked in me. And I remembered the passion I had behind writing these books and how magical it was. And I thought, I want to be a children's book author. I want to write these stories. And there's something within me that would really enjoy that. I found the stories, and I read them again, and I was like, these are magical. Like, there wasn't something in me that was like, oh, what is this? Usually, sometimes you write something years ago, like, what the heck? What is this weird thing that I wrote when I was?
I've got a few of those lying around.
Right? Exactly. I think we all do. We journaled something, and we're like, oh my God, what was I thinking? What was happening at that point in my life? But no, it was quite different. I thought, whoa, this is beautiful. I want to bring that out. Whatever that is, I want to bring that out. And I made the commitment to myself that I was going to do this. And I learned everything. I started researching, the industry of independently publishing, because I understood also that and the industry has changed quite a bit. It used to be that if you got picked up by a publishing company, they would market for you, they would do everything, and you maintain some of the rights to your story. Not anymore. If I was to submit my story, they would decide how they wanted to visually present itself. And as an artist, part of it is writing. The other part of my stories is very visual, is to be able to go into a space. So it's a twofold.
So you weren't presenting this book already illustrated?
No, there was nothing. It was just the words. And there was a moment where I didn't even think I wanted to illustrate it. I almost decided to have somebody else do it. And I believe I have to honor my dad for this. He had a conversation with me, and he's like, what, are you crazy? He's like, no, you are so talented. You've got to illustrate this. And I thought, maybe I do. And it was that, and the illustrations were a whole other stretch of the process, because the words came first for this, but really tapping into the visual. It came from the space of the inner universe of a child, which I would say is more of the unconscious mind, of what is that space that we're going into in our visions and in our dreams. Because to a child, that is just as real as anything else is. And I wanted that to be the essence of, I think I counted the other day, there was like over 45 different characters in the book. There's just so many little things that are hidden. Like the Where's Waldo books were a big deal for me when I was a kid. I remember I was like, where's Waldo? And I loved seeing what else was going on, because it wasn't just Waldo. There was like all these crazy things happening. And I was mesmerized by that. So the visuals for me were a big deal. And that was part of my process.
Yeah. So you did the illustrations?
Yeah, I did the illustrations. I worked alongside another artist. Like if you see Disney and you see a lot of, I wanted to have just somebody's perception of, how do you envision when you read this? She was just there to give me a little bit of perspective about what she saw. And then together, most of it was, I all of the coloring, all the rendering was coming from that space within me. But I felt to really get perspective from other artists and other visionaries on how do you see this too.
So they would give you their interpretation of your words, pretty much. They would describe it to you, and you would turn it into art. She
would also do some illustrations as well. Okay. And then by the end, it turned into like this finished piece of what I felt I would want to take it out there as.
Yeah, that's an interesting way of doing it. That's pretty cool. I really appreciate the content of this book, because I have my middle child, Molly, will just sit herself in her room and put her animals up there, and she'll create stories, and she'll create conversations, and she can do it with herself for for an hour or two, just create these worlds within herself. And when I read this book, the book that you wrote, I just think of Molly.
Yeah. And Molly is probably very similar to how I was as a child. I mean, I was the same. I would have like elaborate conversations with with my Barbies and like whatever else was
Yeah.
around, looking for, fantasy creatures in the forest. And when I look at trees, I see faces, and that's not to me something that should ever get turned off. And I find that the secret behind my books is that, because there are more coming, is that the energy behind the books is the kids are already there. It's to help them embrace this,
Hmm.
to allow them to take it to wherever it needs to go within themselves and to never shut it off, right? For
Yeah.
adults, it's to reawaken it, because I really feel that these are not books that are just for children. They
Yeah.
talk about adulting, right? Yes, we have to be adults. There is an adult world. We do need to do some responsible things, but I feel that we would be able to do it so much better if we awakened to that essence of magical reality, that it is everywhere, that being playful, having these moments of creativity, of inspiration. I think imagination, to me, I always say imagination is creation. When we imagine, that's where the spark happens, and then we bring it into reality. And to turn that off is really a shame.
And the other thing I think is it's important for parents when they recognize that in their children to encourage it.
Yeah, I mean, children are, they get it, and they are the most elaborate storytellers.
Yeah.
And when we tap into that energy, and it never goes away. I mean, I'm the same energy as I was when I was a child now. I think the only difference between who I am right now and who I was then is that I'm actually listening to it right now. I'm actually bringing it out to the world and sharing it.
Yeah. One of the things that I wish would have happened to me when I was a kid or when I was younger, at least, in high school, is I wish people would have encouraged me to focus on what I was good at, which was more of the artistic
Yeah.
side, the creative side, the writing side, instead of focusing in on why I was so bad at math.
Right, exactly. I mean, and I'm terrible at math. And now I'm like, had I known that I would have had, calculators everywhere, I would never even paid attention to it. And I actually didn't. I think that the way that conventional education was, and of course I was a teacher too, and it was always fascinating to me because I would get these children in my classes that were deemed as the ones that were the problem children, that were really struggling in school. They had all kinds of support in place for them, and they would sit in my classroom and they were so focused and they were so advanced, and I didn't see that side. And there are many different types of learners and learning styles.
Hmm.
And when I was younger, I wasn't really particularly advanced in conventional education. I'm very intelligent, but I didn't see myself as that intelligent because I wasn't good in what school put out there for
Yeah.
us.
Well, you mentioned that you've got some other books in the pipe.
I do. So my second book that I wrote around the same time as Surprise I Have Three Eyes. Surprise I Have Three Eyes is about the inner vision. That there's much more to the way you can see the world than the physical. The next book that I wrote, it's not going to be the next book to be published. I thought it was going to be. And so I have a little bit of a time lapse here because I thought I'd be working on that book. And then another book came and my heart is really in that. So I thought I'm going to just go with the flow. But the next book was supposed to be about the inner voice. The third book that I wrote, that's probably going to come out as the second book. It's basically about everything that we are beyond the physical.
Oh, okay.
It's a beautiful story, and I would say that it actually has more of a basis in my own story. A bio. It's a little bit about me and how I kind of perceive all that. It's called All That We Are.
Oh man,
Yeah,
I'm intrigued.
yeah, yeah. It's a really cool story, and every time I read it, I cry.
And is
So
this
it's just,
also children's focused or
yeah, they all are. They
okay.
all are. But, of course, that's just the essence of the rhythm of the way that the words are written, are kind of in a rhyme. And that's very childlike energy. It's definitely written for the child, but also the child within the adult. So they touch on very deep topics that can touch anybody.
So when do
So
you think we're going to see book number 2 and book
I
number
don't
3?
know. I haven't started the visuals on that one. And like I said, it's a process.
Yeah.
My hope is at some point, perhaps on the later side of 2020, the next book is going to be published.
Ooh, all right. How is Surprise I Have Three Eyes done?
It's been a really amazing journey with this book. Within the first 2 weeks of the book being published, it went international, became a bestseller overseas, which is really cool. I have no idea how it did that. Because I wasn't really aggressively marketing it. And I know that the people that really you start out with your network of influence. And I wasn't even on social media. I was kind of one of those, no, I don't even want to have a social media page. I don't want it. And I believe that anything that's meant to be just naturally and organically flows to me. And it has. But then I realized, you know what? I want this book to be able to get out there to more people. So I started my Facebook page again and Instagram page not too long ago. It was really only like maybe 2 months or so before the book was actually out. It was crazy. I was really just in it, and then I was out, and then I started to put it out there. And it just kind of took on a life of its own. So the first day that it was released, it became a bestseller in 7 different categories on Amazon. And
That's
I'm very
amazing.
proud of that. Yeah. And then people started finding me, asking for interviews and, just requesting copies of the book. And I haven't pushed it. I've just kind of allowed it to take on a life of its own. And I just found out I'm going to be going to Miami in 10 days, actually, because it received a book award. So I'm excited
Really?
about that too. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, so it's now an award-winning international best-selling book.
You are one of the most famous people to come out of Cortland.
Right.
Other than Ted Demme, who created Yo MTV Raps.
Oh, really?
I think
I
so.
had no idea. I
Yeah.
had no idea of that.
And the wrestler Mankind. But
I had no idea of that either. Well,
that's
yeah.
amazing. I'm super glad that you came back to social so I could reconnect with you.
So we could connect. And it's great because social media has really reconnected me with a lot of people that I probably wouldn't have had, it would have fell off the face of the earth for me in my life. And for a little while I needed that. I needed, especially, and there's that thing with an artist, because I'm an artist and I have to go into my special space.
Yeah.
And kind of marinate there for a while. I go into my think tank and I just spend time doing, and then so it's this flow of going inward and then outward and inward and outward. And so I had to learn to kind of balance that, because being very social and social media, that's very external. But when I'm going through the creative process, I need to shut all that off. So now I'm learning as that.
That's a skill on its own, because it's so difficult to be able to recognize that you need to turn the stuff off.
Oh gosh, yeah, for sure.
Most people just can't.
Yeah, I think it's a challenge for many of us now.
Yeah.
I mean, how many people do you see, enjoying a wonderful lunch together on their phones? I mean, it happens everywhere.
Yeah.
And for me though, with my work, these books, and that's why I've been on hold for a little while with my next book, because each of them, they're unique. They're their own separate entity. They're their own separate piece of artwork. Maybe when it's ready, the next book will start to happen, and then that one will take on a different life of its own. But I'm still kind of in the process with the first book, especially being my first.
Yeah. You want to plug where you can get your book and all that stuff?
Oh yeah. Well, you can find my book. I do personalized books at JanineLaurie.com. So that's my website, and I personalize them if for the holidays, if you have somebody that you want, to have the book personalized and autographed for. If not, it's available online at Amazon, Barnes Noble. I think it's at Walmart online.
Awesome. Very exciting stuff. So out in California there, were you guys affected by the fires?
Us personally, no.
Are you close?
Maybe about an hour.
Oh, okay.
South. I don't know. We kind of got used to them when we first moved out here, because both my husband and I are from New York. We met out here, but we're both.
Oh, I didn't know he was from New York.
Yeah, he is. So we're both not used to what the weather and stuff out here in California and the fires. And I remember when we first built our first house, there was a fire right behind our house. It was, I mean, you could see it from our bedroom window. And we just moved into this brand new house that we built from the ground up, and we were freaking out. And it really looked like something from an apocalypse. I mean, it was crazy. The sky was black and it was raining ashes, and everybody's just going around as if nothing's happening. And we were like, we had bags packed. We're like, oh my God, what's happening? We were so freaked out. And now we've become those people that are like, oh yeah, it's just another fire. And it's terrible because they do affect people, and people are affected by it, and they evacuate their homes, and nobody ever wants to go through that. And my heart goes out to all of those that are affected by it. But to some degree, it becomes a season out here, fire season.
Yeah.
And we just get used to realizing that it's just kind of the part of the cycle of where we are, and not to freak out about it unless it kind of comes very close to where we are, and we don't really have control over it.
Right.
So
you get earthquakes out there?
We had a really, really scary earthquake not too long ago. A few months ago, there was a 7.1.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. I had never experienced an earthquake like that ever being out here, and everything was shaking. I mean, I saw the whole house swaying.
Did you have any damage?
No, we didn't. There was no damage from that earthquake, but it was a big one. And it was about 2 hours away from us. So if you can imagine a 7.1 feeling that big, 2 hours away from us, it was a pretty big earthquake.
You ever get back out to the East Coast at all?
I haven't been back in a while.
Your dad's still around?
Yeah, he's in Florida.
Oh, he is?
Yeah, he's in Florida. So
I remember the lobster bisque. I can't believe you don't remember this.
I do remember you guys coming for New Year's Eve, but it was so normal for me that probably for you guys it was like a big deal, and for me I'm like, oh yeah, that. I do remember now.
Well, tell your dad that the one guy who came to his house that one time and ate his lobster bisque says thanks for the hospitality.
Oh, I certainly will. I'm going to see him in a few weeks, so I will let him know. But yeah, I'd love to hear about what's going on with you. Enough about me. It's been all these years. Like, where are you?
I'm still in Richmond.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's pretty much it.
So, I think the one thing that I always remember you as is you're just a really cool guy with an awesome sense of humor, fun-loving personality, and you're super creative. Like I always remember you as that, like, really, yeah, because I remember when we reconnected a few years back for a little while, and I was like, Matt is so dynamic. You're really good at that marketing and getting out in a way that is kind of foreign to me. Like there's like,
thank you.
There's a kind of that, I see it in people that I know that are just really good at branding and marketing. Like they have this way to envision things differently.
Yeah. Well, thank you. That's what I was doing. I was working in marketing in a digital capacity, coming up with brand communications and managing all these social media channels and things like that. Now I'm just kind of out on my own doing consulting work. When you focus on brand, it's different to me. It's different than like the sales message and the marketing. My whole goal is to reach human beings on a human level.
Absolutely.
Whether it's B2B or B2C, everybody at the end of the day is human. So I always tailor whatever I do towards the audience and to the person. And that can get difficult when you're working in a corporate environment when they have very strict brand or marketing messages that they want to get out and they don't want to focus on building a brand. That's what I try to do is I try to tell companies and businesses to focus on brand. If we don't build a brand now, in this day and age when there's brands on Amazon, no-name brands coming straight off the shelf from China, and the market is flooded with every type of widget you could possibly imagine with a different name on it, the only thing that's going to win the dollars is your brand.
For sure.
And,
I do speak to other authors. I've done presentations to other authors that are looking to get out there and kind of do what I've done. The first thing I say is you have to identify your brand. Who are you? And it doesn't mean that your brand can't change, because it does, but who are you? Like, what is it that you are in this doing? Right. And as soon as you identify that, then you could start to have an identity with what your brand looks like and all of those things. But consistency in that and being able to flow. And for me, you are always connecting with people.
And it's not just who are you, it's why. Why are you
doing it?
Why are you doing it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, for sure. The why is fun too, because at this point, the hope is that you're doing it because you love it. Sometimes people aren't always.
Right.
But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, that was what I always remembered about you, was that there was this fun-loving, creative essence within you, you
Even though
know?
I was kind of I don't know, I don't even know how you would describe me back then. More of like a not a punk, but a little different.
Yeah, punk is good, and so is different. I
Different
remember
compared to the, the rest of the people that were at Cortland.
Oh yeah. Well, I
Yeah.
mean, I think that for me in my life, I tend to like to look for that. Like I'm attracted to different. I
Yeah.
attract friendships that are unique, because those are the ones that are, inspiring and putting like a spark behind moving things, moving the needle, changing the dynamics. So that's probably why we were friends. And
Yes.
I remember Animal.
I still have it. It's up in my closet in a bag somewhere. Yeah.
Still have it. That's funny. Oh, Animal.
How do you remember Animal?
I don't know, because it was different and it was unusual and it was fun. That's what was an Animal a big deal?
I don't know. Was it?
I remember it was like, what is the weird stuff we could do with Animal?
Oh yeah. Somebody threw him out a window once.
Yeah, he became kind of like this weird thing that people would do odd things with,
Yeah.
you know.
God.
And you kind of took on the energy of Animal.
For a little while, I think I did.
You're
Man.
from Buffalo, right?
Yeah. I'm from Buffalo. I just
Buffalo.
got back from Buffalo. Me and a few guys, we went up there to go to like a hockey game and a football game. Yeah.
Very cool.
And eat all that Buffalo upstate food.
Yeah, I don't know much about that. All I remember from upstate, I thought was strange at first. I'm like, this is oddly delicious. Everybody would put blue cheese with pizza.
Yeah. Oh, that's
And
my
I was
favorite.
like, what the heck? I know, exactly. And then I was like, oh, going out pizza, do you have any blue cheese?
Right.
People don't do that out here. If anything, you're lucky to find pizza out here that actually tastes like something recognizable.
Well, you're pretty healthy, right? Like, aren't you into like health,
Yeah,
like nutrition and
I am. I don't know if you know this part of my life because it wasn't there when we knew each other back in college. But after I graduated from college, maybe about 2 months after graduation, I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes.
oh,
It was probably there for a few years and I just didn't know it.
yeah.
And I got really, really sick my senior year. Well, after I had just graduated. And I went to the hospital, the emergency room, and after 6 hours of like evaluating me, I was losing my vision. And my eye doctor from home, I had like a slight stigmatism and I didn't really have problems with my eyes. The eye doctor called in the hospital and said, check her sugar level. And they checked my sugar level. It was over 600 and normal's like 70. That was also a really big transition in my life because I just finished Cortland and I was in this transition between what am I going to do next in my life. And I had the choice as to whether I was going to go on to graduate school or not. So I decided to, no matter what, I still went and I just figured out how to live with diabetes and life went on.
So type 1 is the one that doesn't go away. You have it for life.
You have it for life. So they
Yeah.
say. I like to not think of anything as having anything for life because oddly enough, there was another one of these moments that I had where it was the moment where I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. The nurse came into the room, I was by myself, and she looked at me and she said, I'm going to tell you something. She goes, you have type 1 diabetes, but you're not going to have this forever. The nurse says this to me, a nurse. And she goes, I believe there will be a cure in your lifetime. And that was it. That was how she left it. And I feel like it was like one of those messages from something beyond the nurse. But yeah, type 1 diabetes is it's an autoimmune condition. So something at some point in my life, it's not through food. It's not like I ate something and then suddenly
It's not
I
from the
had
blue cheese on pizza.
no, it wasn't. Although I can't really eat that much anymore because my body reacts to it. But yeah, it's autoimmune. So something's attacking the ability for my body to use the insulin that my pancreas is.
Okay. But you're managing it pretty well now.
Yeah, I have an insulin pump. It's been 20 years.
Wow.
I mean,
Yeah,
20.
I had no idea.
Yeah, so that sparked an understanding and a desire for me to understand everything I could about healthy living and nutrition because most of the time it was about what makes me feel good. How am I going to be able to live the longest life I can? And our son was also born with an autoimmune condition that I wasn't aware of until he was about 4. I finally diagnosed him myself. maybe you heard of pandas.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. So he has PANS. Pandas is an pediatric autoimmune condition that attacks the brain when the body is, I guess, influenced by the strep virus.
Right.
So if they get strep virus, the body will have a reaction and attack the brain. PANS is any virus will attack the brain. So
but in the same way that pandas does?
There are variations.
Mhm.
I think each case has variations of what the symptomatic picture looks like. It's very similar to like the spectrum of autism. PANS is there are some things that happen to many kids that they experience. Some have tics, some
Right.
have OCD, some have emotional liability, a regression emotionally. Either way, it's attacking the basal ganglia in the brain. So whatever that area of the brain controls is what the virus is going to attack.
Now, don't most children grow out of that, or is that not known yet?
It's not known yet. There have been studies because it's more on they have been studying it for only so long. It's becoming much more prevalent now that they call it a pediatric because it tends to only show itself like juvenile. Interestingly enough, type 1 diabetes was termed juvenile diabetes, and now PANS and PANDAS is considered a pediatric autoimmune condition. So both my son and I have these things that shows itself as more of a childhood type of thing. Whether it stays for life, I don't know. They say around puberty, they can outgrow it. Maybe something with the hormones, maybe the body starts to get used to the autoimmune response and adapt to it. But he's not old enough for that yet. And I don't know to what extent some of the other kids will. Maybe they learn to just control it. I don't know.
Right. But he's doing well?
He's doing well. I mean, we've worked a lot with him. He still has episodes where we see triggers and things, but we do our best to just we are in a different place with it too. And in the school that he's in, I mean, I have a big support system, but I'm in there all the time. I mean, I'm like I'm his cheerleader.
Yeah.
They're communicating, helping him.
And how's Carl doing? He's all right?
Yeah, he's good. He's moving into a different life for himself as well. I mean, he supports people shift their perspective through the brain as well. I mean, he does what I do in just a different context.
Yeah, and he was great supporting you with the book and everything.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, he was like the back end of my book. Anything that came out with editing, with marketing, with visual, is him. I mean, my website, he's just fantastic at those sides of the business that I would sit there for like 4 hours and be throwing things at the computer. It's not my thing. And I honor that we all have things. It's his thing. He's really good at
it. Good.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. You ever talk to anybody else from Cortland days? I'm trying to think of like that T of a hallway that you guys lived on that I spent so much time in.
Yeah. Becky and she recently emailed me. Other than that, I see her post pictures and stuff. Julie, she's still in upstate.
Yeah.
I don't know much about, I mean, I don't see much about what's going on with anybody.
You know who will comment on Julie's stuff sometimes? You remember Cheech?
Oh no, Cheech! What happened to Cheech? Yes, I remember Cheech.
Somebody posted like, "Is that Cheech?" And he was like, "I don't go by that anymore."
Oh, that's too bad. I don't go by that anymore. What was his real name?
His name's Jeremy. I didn't know his name.
Jeremy, that's right. Why did they call him Cheech?
I don't know. He was just Cheech.
Funny. I mean, I keep in touch with a lot of people through Facebook that I was friends with at Cortland. Yeah. I still see them, but my group of friends shifted, and then I was in a sorority, right. and then I was dating. It was kind of around whoever my boyfriend was at the time.
Yeah.
I had many, so they would shift around quite a bit. and then, so, I mean, it was kind of like I had a group of friends, and then I keep in touch with a lot of them, but I don't know towards the end if we knew the same people, but from the beginning.
Well, do you remember when we were freshmen, I lived with that guy, Scott, who was, I don't know what happened to him. I don't care to know.
I don't even know him.
But all the other guys that were on that hall they were older. They were a year older. So they moved off campus when I was a sophomore. But it was like, Matt Heckman and
Yeah.
John Grosso and
Yes.
all those guys. They're nice guys, super nice guys. But then sophomore year, I got my roommate Jeff. I don't know if
Huh.
you remember him. And then there was
Maybe.
Eric. Then there was Eric Tucker, and
Uh-huh.
a guy we called Newman. His name was Mike, but we called him Newman.
Yeah, I kind of
I
remember.
lost touch with Eric, and he lived in near my hometown, but I lost touch with him right after college. I don't know where he went. He's not on any social. Newman's not on any social, but I do have his phone number.
That's funny.
And every few
Phone
years,
number probably changed quite a
well,
bit.
no, every few years I'll just text the number Newman, and he'll be like,
Newman.
"Yeah." He'll just say, and he'll just say, "Yeah, who's this?"
That's funny. It seems like a really long time ago.
It was a long
I'm
time
sure
ago.
that they have. Do they have reunions and stuff?
I get emails for reunions.
You do?
Yeah.
I must not be on the email list.
Yeah.
I get emails from Syracuse, but they're only asking for donations of money. I'm like,
right.
no. I mean, not that I wouldn't donate, but that's all they see me as. I don't know. I think that it would be interesting to see people. It wasn't like high school, like you share 4 years with these people and it doesn't really change so much. College was so much different. There was a lot more people and you're changing dynamics quite a bit. So
I mean, especially those first couple of years, like we pretty much lived together. We just didn't sleep in the same.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like we all lived in the same building.
Actually, sometimes we did all sleep in the same room.
Right.
I remember how, and that was the time. What did we do? I remember we would go out, but I don't remember where we would go. Oh, I do remember getting Jen Lieberman's ID because we looked alike a little bit and she was older. So when she turned 21, I was rocking her ID. I don't remember what we did. We went to a lot of frat parties on Clayton. Was it Clayton Avenue?
The block party. I think they got rid of it after we graduated.
Probably.
After we were done. Yeah.
I don't know if it was just our group, but that just seems, and if every college is like that, but it just seemed like it was just a big drinking fest all the time.
I think it was just our college.
It was great, but I mean, it was ridiculous. It was,
right. I do think about like going back, like if I could go back and do it all over, I definitely would have concentrated more on school.
I wouldn't. I had a great time and it didn't really serve me anything. I wasn't getting much out of it. It was fun. I think that, I have no regrets. And I look back at certain things and there's no part of my life. Like it was clearly like for me, that was part of connecting more socially and it was fine. Yeah, it was good times. It was good times that I clearly don't remember much of. But it's good to bring that side of my life back in again. It's funny.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time, and I'm looking forward to your next couple of books.
Yeah, me too. I got to get my ass on them. I just am very much in the flow, like you see. I'm just very much assuming, like your whole idea of caught by happy, like that's what we're all looking for. It's like, what is it that drives me? And if it doesn't make me happy, I don't do it. I just can't find myself doing things that I could go out and get a conventional job. I could work for somebody else. I could be doing all those things. But I can't. Like there is just something in me that no matter how much money I'd be making, no matter, I can't do it. Like my soul wants something different. And it's not always the easiest route because we're funding it all ourselves. It's unpredictable. We don't know when money's coming in. We've had years where we literally had like no money coming in, living off of savings, completely broke, living in Southern California. That is the most expensive place to live on the planet. Short sailed our home that we built. Like we went through some tough times, had to rely on family. And yet there was something within us that said, but even knowing all of that, we can't go back. Like we have to just do this.
Right.
And we're doing it, and we're doing it. And quite frankly, it's not easy every day, but I'm happier doing this than doing any other way. Yeah. It just is what it is.
That's just like inspirational shit. I love it.
It is. I wish I can say it's perfect because it's not. I mean, we had so many moments where like literally we were like, what how are we going to pay our bills? And yet we did. Like we always found a way to do it. And we're in the process. I think we're always in the process, but we're not like, we're starting to see that we're getting a little bit over that hump where now our hard work and dedication that we're putting in is starting to show for something. For me, I'm planting such a seed. I mean, it is, the book has done tremendous, but still it's a small seed, and it takes years
Right.
to grow. And yet,
But if you weren't doing it, and if you weren't putting your effort into these books and these stories, and and if Carl wasn't putting his work and his effort into what he loves to do,
yeah,
I mean, you guys might have money, but you'd be miserable.
totally. And we did have money, and like he was he's making a lot of money at his last job, and yet we were both miserable. I
Yeah.
mean, we weren't connecting with life. When he lost that job, it was scary, but we gave ourselves a few years of moments where we just said, I don't care. We're just going to enjoy. We're going to be here because life is too short. And I think that really shifted us. And every once in a while, we see ourselves going back into the other moment of like wanting the other side, because.
Well, that's because of the society that we live in. I mean, that's
course.
what's important, right? That's what they're telling us is important.
And yet our son was raised mostly with dad home all the time. Like he doesn't know and now my husband is working more. Carl's out there, and for the work that he's doing is being called to teach nationally. So he's traveling quite a bit. And now I'm going to places, nationally and internationally. So I'm traveling a bit, but he's a little bit older. But the best thing is that he sees us doing work that we built. This is for us.
Right.
Like we're doing something. My son saw this book from like nothing. It was nothing. He watched me draw the pages. He watched everything. He literally saw creation happening.
Yeah.
And now he's seeing me selling my creation.
Okay. Well, I feel good. Do you feel good?
Yeah.
Well, tell your family I said hello, even though I haven't met them.
Likewise.
All right.
For sure. Take care.
All right. Bye, Jenine.
Bye.
Oh, man. Wasn't that nice? Got to have a nice little conversation with an old friend, somebody I hadn't seen or talked to in a very long time. And I know at the end there, we were just kind of reminiscing a little bit. Apologies if the references didn't make sense. It was good to talk to her, and it was good to catch up, and it was good to bring up Animal. If you heard that little bit, it was, Animal the Muppet. If you didn't figure that out, the Muppet Animal is one that I had in my dorm room for some reason. I just had this old puppet, and people used to come in and take him out and play with him and throw him around the room, and I don't know. It was the 90s. Hey, if you're interested in getting Janine's book, please check out our website, JanineLaurie.com. Or you can search for Surprise I Have 3 Eyes on Amazon. I'll put a link to it up on the podcast description. I'll put it on my website too. All right, well, hey, look, I'm thinking about doing an episodic type of podcast, maybe tell a story over a series of episodes. I just, need the story. Maybe you have a story. Maybe you know of a story that you're interested in and that you want to help tell. Maybe we can tell it together. Maybe we can partner up on this, start a brand new podcast, maybe 10, 14 episodes. I don't know. We'll tell a story over a period of time. If you're interested, hit me up, caught-by-happy@gmail.com. We could partner up on something. Could be fun, right? All right. Okay, everybody. I'll see you next time. Have a good one. Caught by Happy is a production of Harrington Communications Consultants. If you have any needs for strategic communications or content marketing, public relations, or social media, you can hit us up at harringtoncc.net and we'll get you straight.